How do you pack 43 years of love into 2 suitcases? I'm Margaret Sullivan, a 67-year-old widow, sitting on a sagging motel mattress, staring at the peeling wallpaper of the Sunset Inn, wondering where it all went wrong. My husband, Robert, died of a heart attack 2 months ago, and I thought my world had ended then. But the real blow came last Tuesday, when my daughter, Victoria, stood in the doorway of what was now her house, our family home of decades, and told me to find somewhere else to die, because I was useless now. Her words cut deeper than grief ever could. I'd been the obedient wife, the doting mother, hosting her birthday parties, nursing Robert through illness, keeping our home a sanctuary. Yet here I am, exiled with $200 and a suggestion to check into a senior facility. The air smells of stale cigarettes and regret, and my hands tremble as I clutch a photo of Robert and me, smiling on our 30th anniversary. Something's off, though. Robert was meticulous, and the will Victoria waved in my face doesn't feel right. There's a twist coming. I can sense it, sharper than the ache in my chest. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're from, because honey, this story has more turns than a pretzel factory. I packed my life in a daze, 43 years of marriage reduced to 2 suitcases and a box of photos. Victoria watched from the doorway, checking her watch like I was delaying her spa appointment. "There's a nice senior complex on Maple Street," she said, her voice flat, like she was recommending a diner. "Affordable," she called it, while inheriting $33 million and suggesting I settle for a welfare home. Her husband, Kevin, loaded my bags into their BMW with the efficiency of a man disposing of trash. "Margaret, you'll love your independence," he said, avoiding my eyes. Independence. No home, no money. Just a motel room with thin walls and thinner towels. As we drove away, I watched my house, Robert's house, Victoria's house now, fade in the rearview mirror. I'd spent decades making it a home, polishing its floors, hanging family photos, hosting Victoria's extravagant parties. Now I was an unwanted guest, driven to the Sunset Inn, $49 a night, where the carpet stains told stories I didn't want to hear. Victoria handed me $200 like she was tipping a maid. "This should cover a few days while you get settled," she said, promising to transfer some money later, as if my own inheritance was a generous allowance. After they left, I sat in the dim light, the hum of a faulty air conditioner mocking my new reality. In 3 hours, I'd gone from grieving widow to homeless senior citizen. My daughter, the girl I'd raised and sacrificed for, had discarded me like an old coat. But as I traced the edges of Robert's photo, something nagged at me. He'd always been obsessive about documents, showing me the will years ago, explaining every clause. I was certain it didn't say what Victoria claimed. Robert wasn't cruel. He'd held my hand through my mother's death, surprised me with flowers every anniversary. He wouldn't leave me destitute. The next morning, I used the motel's spotty Wi-Fi to find Harrison Fitzgerald, Robert's lawyer, who'd handled our house purchase and business matters for years. The 20-minute bus ride downtown cost precious cash, but I needed answers. Harrison's office was a world away from the motel. Polished wood, leather chairs, the kind of place that smelled like money and trust. His secretary announced me, and Harrison, a distinguished man in his 70s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, looked surprised. "Margaret, I was wondering when you'd come in," he said. "I tried calling, but Victoria said you were traveling." Traveling? That's what she'd told him. My stomach churned as I asked about the will. His puzzled look confirmed my fears. "Didn't Victoria give you your copy?" he asked, pulling out a thick file. "There was a reading. She said you were too distraught, that she'd handle everything." The blood drained from my face. A reading I was never told about. Victoria had lied, claiming I inherited nothing. Harrison's expression shifted to alarm as he read from the document, Robert's neat signature at the bottom. "I, Robert James Sullivan, bequeath to my beloved wife, Margaret Ann Sullivan, our primary residence at 847 Oakwood Drive, and 70% of all financial assets, approximately $23 million. My head spun. The house? $23 million. Not nothing. And Victoria's $10 million was contingent on treating me with respect, a clause she'd spectacularly violated. Victoria had forged documents, committed fraud, and thrown me out, thinking I'd never fight back. But she was about to learn that even a pawn can become a queen. Harrison's words hung in the air like a lifeline thrown into stormy waters. "Margaret, that's impossible," he said, his voice laced with alarm as he rifled through the file with urgent precision. The document he pulled out was the real will, witnessed and notarized, Robert's signature, as familiar as his handwriting on our anniversary cards. As he read aloud, the pieces of Victoria's deception snapped into place like a puzzle I'd been too grief-stricken to see. To me, the house and 70% of everything, $23 million. To Victoria, $10 million in trust, but only if she treated me with dignity after his death. Otherwise, it all reverted to me. Robert had known her flaws, her entitlement, the way she'd always been his princess, but dismissed me as background noise. He'd updated the will 6 months before dying, worried about her greed. My mind reeled, the leather chair suddenly feeling like the only solid thing in the room. $23 million, the house, mine. And now, with her cruelty, Victoria had forfeited her share, making it $33 million total. Harrison's face flushed with anger. What she's done is elder abuse and fraud, multiple felonies. I described the forged papers she'd shown me, the cold calculation in her eyes. Forged, likely from an earlier draft, he confirmed. Robert had seen it coming, the eye rolls at family dinners, the way she'd talk over me about their lavish vacations, treating me like I couldn't grasp simple finances. He'd built in protections, a chess move from beyond the grave. We didn't waste time. Harrison picked up the phone, his cheerful tone belying the storm he was unleashing as he dubbed it Operation Justice. He contacted the police, the banks, a private investigator, while I sat there, sipping water that tasted like vindication. Detective Rodriguez arrived within the hour, a sharp woman in her 40s who reviewed the fake will with a professional nod. "Sophisticated forgeries," she said. "This was planned, probably with help." Kevin's name came up immediately. His investment banking world, his connections to printers who handled sensitive documents. My son-in-law, always so polished, might have been the architect. By afternoon, every account was frozen. Victoria's credit cards, tied to what she thought was her windfall, would soon decline. The house utilities, hastily transferred to her name, suspended pending verification. I imagined her in my kitchen, planning renovations with stolen money, oblivious to the implosion. My phone rang at 3:47 p.m. "Victoria. Mom, where are you? There's a mix-up with the banks, Daddy's assets are frozen." Her voice was edged with panic. "Hello, Victoria." I replied calmly. "I'm in Harrison Fitzgerald's office. You remember him, the one who read the real will while you claimed I was traveling." Silence stretched. Then denial. "Mom, I don't know what you think you've discovered, but..." I cut her off. "I discovered you're a liar and a thief, and that your father was smarter than us both." She tried gaslighting, claiming she was protecting me from complex investments I'd never handled. The audacity burned. By throwing your 67-year-old mother out and telling her to die elsewhere? Because I was too stupid to notice? Her sharpness turned desperate. "Mom, you're confused. Grief is overwhelming you." Even cornered, she manipulated. I clarified the clause. Her $10 million now mine, thanks to her lack of respect. "That's impossible," she snapped. Detective Rodriguez, sitting nearby, offered to discuss fraud charges. Victoria went quiet, then pleaded. "Mom, please, can we meet and talk reasonably? We can work something out." "We'll meet at the courthouse when you're arraigned," I said. "You wouldn't press charges against your own daughter." Something cold solidified in me. "Watch me." I hung up, Harrison beaming approval. "How long before arrest?" I asked. "Warrant soon. They'll pick her up tonight." Kevin's records were being subpoenaed. If involved, he'd face charges too. A text buzzed. "Mom, please don't. Think of the grandchildren." I showed Detective Rodriguez, who noted the manipulation. I replied, "I'm thinking of them. They deserve to know what happens when you steal from family." Kevin called next, his voice smooth but strained. "Margaret, surely we can resolve this privately. Victoria made poor decisions, but police seem excessive." "Did you help forge the documents?" Silence, then deflection. "You have to understand the pressure. She worried about your mental state." "So yes, by evicting me and calling me useless." He went quiet. "Here's what's happening. Arrests, federal fraud charges, and I'll watch from my house." The police got Victoria at 8:30 p.m. during dinner at Leonard's, celebrating her inheritance. She screamed about false arrest, demanding her lawyer, Kevin's golf buddy, clueless on criminal law. Kevin was nabbed at his office the next morning. The forensic accountant traced forgeries to a printer his firm used for shady prospectuses. Kevin had a criminal resume Victoria ignored or enabled. That night, back in my house, I slept in the master bedroom. Victoria's chaos of designer clothes and cosmetics cluttered it. I bagged them for the porch. The space felt different, not just Robert's absence, but my presence emerging. For decades, I'd shaped it around his tastes. Now it would reflect mine. Harrison called with updates. Victoria's bail $50,000, Kevin's $200,000 due to his fraud history. Who knew he'd been under investigation? Excluded from financial talks, I'd been treated like a child. But I understood more than they thought. Harrison, I want house changes, I said. Victoria planned renovations, I'll proceed, but my way. Excellent, he replied. It's yours now. Undoing her assumptions thrilled me. Her kitchen gutting became my cozy redesign. Robert's study, her wine cellar plan, my art studio, a passion I'd shelved for marriage. The doorbell rang early next morning. Victoria, post-bail, looked shattered in rumpled clothes. I opened the door but blocked entry. Mom, we need to talk. We did. You told me to die elsewhere. I chose to live instead. Red-eyed, she admitted mistakes. I'm still your daughter. Daughters don't forge documents to steal inheritances, she faltered, claiming protection. From poor decisions, you've never managed big money. Even now, condescension. I shared Robert's words from 6 months prior, worries about her entitlement, likening her to his selfish sister Eleanor. That's a lie. I played his recording, his voice devastating, fears justified, hopes dashed. If you're hearing this, Victoria, you've proven me right. She sank, sobbing real tears. He hated me. No, he loved you enough to hope better. You chose worse. By the end, she whispered, what now? Consequences, charges, humiliation. Channel 7 called about my story. I considered it. Mom, think of the family. I am how you didn't when committing felonies. She admitted greed, wanting security. It was wrong, unforgivably. For once, truth. Face it with dignity, I said. She left, defeated, seeing the woman who'd outmaneuvered her. 3 days after Victoria's tear-streaked confession on my porch, the fallout from her actions was still rippling through our lives like aftershocks from an earthquake. I'd spent those days reclaiming my space, sorting through Robert's old papers in the study, feeling a mix of triumph and lingering sorrow. The arrests had been swift and satisfying. Victoria hauled away mid-dinner, Kevin from his sleek office the next morning, but the legal machine was just gearing up. Harrison called daily with updates. The district attorney was building a rock-solid case on fraud, forgery, and elder abuse, with evidence from the frozen accounts and traced forgeries pointing straight to Kevin's shady network. Bail had been posted somehow, likely by Kevin's family, but their freedom was temporary, a fragile illusion before the trials. Then the doorbell rang at noon, sharp and insistent. Through the peephole, I saw Eleanor Hayes, Kevin's mother, standing there like royalty, slumming it in the suburbs. She was everything I'd imagined from stories Victoria told. Perfectly coiffed hair, dripping with jewelry that screamed old money. Her posture radiating the entitlement of generations who never heard no. I opened the door, curiosity overriding caution. Margaret, we need to discuss this situation rationally, she said, her voice polished but edged with disdain. I invited her in, if only to see what twisted narrative the Hayes clan had spun to excuse their son's crimes. She settled on my living room sofa as if granting me an audience, crossing her legs and smoothing her designer skirt. Kevin made some poor choices, obviously, she began, waving a manicured hand, but prosecuting him seems rather vindictive, don't you think? Vindictive? The word hung there, absurd. Her son had helped forge documents to steal my $33 million inheritance, evicted me like trash, and now his mother was painting me as the villain. I had to admire the gall. Your son conspired to commit fraud and threw me out of my home, I replied evenly, pouring us tea I didn't want to share. Eleanor leaned forward, her smile tight. Kevin was following Victoria's lead. He didn't grasp the full implications. Blaming my daughter for her precious boy's felonies, classic. But I saw the strategy. Divide and conquer, make it seem like Victoria was the mastermind, while Kevin was an innocent dupe. We sipped in tense silence before she got to the point. Kevin's lawyer believes we can reach a settlement that benefits everyone. You get your house back, though it's already yours, I suppose. Victoria faces appropriate consequences, and Kevin avoids the publicity of a trial. Appropriate consequences, as if stealing from family was a minor faux pas. What kind of settlement? I asked, playing along. Her eyes lit up, sensing an opening. The Hayes family is prepared to compensate you for your inconvenience. Let's say $2 million in exchange for dropping charges against Kevin. $2 million to forgive the theft of 33. The tea turned bitter in my mouth. Mrs. Hayes, your son participated in a scheme that left me homeless and penniless. You think $2 million covers that? She adjusted her necklace, composure cracking just a fraction. Margaret, be realistic. Kevin has a career, children, a reputation to maintain. Prison serves no one. It served justice, I thought, but said nothing. Then she upped the ante. $5 million, final offer. Staggering, yet insulting. The principal was priceless. My answer is no, I said firmly. Eleanor's facade slipped further as she stood. Very well, but you should know Kevin's legal team has uncovered interesting information about your husband's business practices. It would be unfortunate if that became public during trial. The threat landed like a slap, muddy Robert's name to protect their criminal. What information? I pressed. The kind that might make you question who the real criminal was, she replied cryptically, before sweeping out the door. Her words lingered like smoke, tainting the air. After she left, I paced the living room, the family photos on the walls now seeming like relics of a life built on unknowns. Robert had always handled the finances, patronizing me gently about money matters, but was there more? I called Harrison immediately, my voice steadier than I felt. Margaret, whatever they claim, it doesn't alter Victoria and Kevin's crimes, he assured me. But it could muddy the waters, create jury doubt about Robert's character. I want to know everything about his business, deals, partnerships, any irregularities. Harrison hesitated. Are you sure? The past might be better left buried. But the Hayes were threatening to drag Robert's memory through the dirt. I'd rather face the truth first. That evening, I dove into Robert's study, my study now, systematically. He'd been obsessively organized, files dated and labeled, but as I sifted deeper, anomalies emerged. Payments to obscure shell companies, consulting fees that ballooned without explanation, partnerships with firms that seemed ghostly. By midnight, my hands shook as I uncovered ledgers showing millions funneled through his firm in patterns that screamed irregularity. This wasn't the honest man I'd married, or was it? Sleep evaded me, the desk lamp casting long shadows over documents that hinted at a double life. Harrison recommended a private investigator, Carol Chen, a sharp-eyed specialist in financial crimes. She arrived the next morning, efficient and no-nonsense, spending hours photographing files and piecing together what she called the real picture. Mrs. Sullivan, your husband was running a sophisticated money laundering operation, she said bluntly, spreading printouts across the desk. Millions washed for organized crime using his legitimate consulting as cover. The revelation punched the air from my lungs. Impossible. Robert was honest. But the evidence was damning. Fake invoices, phantom contracts, payments syncing with known criminal timelines. At least 12 years, Carol estimated. 12 years while I planned charity events and family dinners. Oblivious. Worse, the $10 million for Victoria traced directly to laundered funds. If the FBI got wind, they'd seize everything as criminal proceeds. The house investments, all gone. Carol looked uneasy. Victoria and Kevin's team likely knows and plans to use it for leverage. Tip off the feds for immunity. My daughter and son-in-law, not just thieves, but wielding a bomb over my head. Options, I whispered. Come forward voluntarily, hope for leniency. Lose most money, maybe keep the house, or they leak it, and you lose anyway, plus potential charges. Kevin, the investment banker, would have spotted the patterns early. The question, what next with this weapon? My phone rang. Victoria? Mom, we need to meet tonight. Things about Daddy change everything. I already know, I said. Silence. About the money laundering, the crimes. She urged a renegotiation. Kevin's immunity for info on Robert's network. I keep $5 million in the house, rest to government. Her charges vanish. Sociopathic brilliance, turning my victory into their escape. You're asking me to profit from crimes by exploiting daddies. Be practical. The alternative is losing all. I hung up, the study dark around me, evidence of Robert's secrets glaring. 43 years with a stranger, a daughter inheriting his deception. But she'd underestimated me again. I dialed Carol. "How quickly for an FBI meeting? I have a story they'll want." Carol moved fast, her efficiency a balm against the chaos swirling in my mind. By the next morning, she'd arranged the meeting, and I found myself in Harrison's conference room, the polished table reflecting my tense face like a mirror to my doubts. FBI agent Sarah Martinez arrived promptly, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s with sharp features and a gaze that seemed to catalog every detail. She introduced herself with a firm handshake, setting up her recorder and notebook as if this were routine, though nothing about my life felt routine anymore. Harrison flanked me, his presence reassuring, while Carol hovered nearby with her stack of photographed documents. "Mrs. Sullivan," Agent Martinez began, her voice measured, "you understand that by coming forward voluntarily, you're potentially admitting to benefiting from criminal proceeds?" I nodded, the weight of Robert's secrets pressing down. I'd rather tell the truth than let Victoria and Kevin twist this for their gain. I laid it all out, starting from the eviction, the forged will, the arrests, and now this, Robert's hidden world unearthed from his meticulous files. As I spoke, Carol spread the evidence across the table. The anomalous payments to shell companies, the excessive consulting fees, the partnerships that dissolved into nothing upon closer inspection. Agent Martinez examined them methodically, her pen scratching notes that echoed in the quiet room. "These patterns are classic money laundering," she confirmed, tracing a finger over a ledger showing millions funneled through Robert's consulting firm. "Washed for organized crime families, using legitimate business as a front." The words echoed Carol's from the night before, but hearing them from a federal agent made them real. Irrevocable. Robert, the man who'd kissed me goodnight for 43 years, had been facilitating criminal empires while I baked casseroles and balanced our household checkbook. My throat tightened as I described the discovery process. It had started innocently enough. That evening after Eleanor's threat, when I'd sat in Robert's study, surrounded by his leather-bound books and the faint scent of his cologne still lingering on the desk blotter, pulling files from cabinets I'd rarely touched. He'd always handled the business side, dismissing my questions with a patronizing smile, saying it was too complex for me to worry about. But as I pored over the documents, the irregularities jumped out. Invoices for services never mentioned, contracts with companies that a quick search revealed didn't exist, payment schedules that aligned suspiciously with news headlines about criminal busts I'd vaguely recalled. By midnight, my eyes burned from the desk lamp's glare, but I couldn't stop. One folder led to another, revealing a web of transactions that screamed deception. At least 12 years, Carol had estimated, and now Agent Martinez nodded in agreement. 12 years of our marriage tainted, while I'd postponed my own dreams, art classes, travel, even a part-time job to support his. The implications crashed over me like waves. If this was true, the entire estate could be seized as proceeds of crime. The house where I'd raised Victoria, the investments Robert had proudly built, the $33 million now rightfully mine, all potentially gone. "The $10 million for Victoria traces directly to laundered funds," Carol interjected, pointing to a highlighted line. Agent Martinez leaned back, her expression unreadable. "If we confirm this, yes, assets could be forfeited. But there's more context here." I felt a chill. What more could there be? Victoria and Kevin's blackmail loomed large. They'd discovered enough to threaten exposure, planning to trade partial info for immunity, offering me a pittance while their charges vanished. "They're meeting the FBI tomorrow," I explained, recounting Victoria's call, her practical proposal. $5 million and the house for me, freedom for them, the rest to the government. Sociopathic, yes, but cunning. Agent Martinez's questions probed deeper, pulling threads from my memories. Had Robert seemed stressed in recent years? Yes, more late nights, vague explanations about client issues. Any unusual visitors? A few sharp-suited men I'd assumed were business associates. Their conversations hushed behind closed doors. As we talked, the room felt smaller, the air thicker with betrayal. Robert's double life unfolded in stark detail, how he'd used his firm to cycle dirty money through fake consulting gigs, emerging clean on the other side. "The Torino crime family primarily," Agent Martinez said, naming them for the first time. "Decades of laundering through businesses like his." My stomach nodded. dangerous people, and Kevin's warning about people who won't appreciate federal attention suddenly carried weight. Was I in physical danger? Potentially, she admitted, but we're equipped to handle that. Yet amid the dread, a spark of anger flared. Eleanor had smugly implied this information would break me, make me accept their bribe. But digging into these dark secrets had only steeled my resolve. Robert's files, once a sanctuary of his organization, now exposed a stranger, a man who'd built our life on lies. Or had he? Agent Martinez pulled a thick file from her briefcase, her tone shifting slightly. Mrs. Sullivan, there's something else about your husband's operation that changes everything. I braced myself, the conference room's clock ticking like a countdown. Whatever came next, it would redefine not just my inheritance, but the man I'd loved. The implications stretched beyond money. To trust, to legacy, to the family fractures that had led me here. Victoria had inherited more than greed. Perhaps Robert's talent for secrets ran in the blood. But I was done being the oblivious wife. Whatever shadows these records cast, I'd face them head-on. Agent Martinez's words hung in the conference room like a storm cloud about to break, her thick file folder thumping onto the table with a finality that made my heart skip. Your husband wasn't just laundering money for the Torino family, she said, flipping open the cover to reveal stacks of redacted reports, surveillance photos, and transcripts that looked like they'd been pulled from a spy novel. He was an FBI informant. The revelation landed like a thunderclap, reshaping everything I'd uncovered in Robert's study. For 12 years, he'd been deep undercover, providing intel on their operations while maintaining the facade of facilitating their laundering schemes. The FBI had allowed it, encouraged it even, to build airtight cases against multiple crime families. Long-term investigation, she explained, her voice steady as she pointed to timelines syncing with Robert's anomalous payments, so sensitive that even local offices weren't looped in. I stared at the photos. Grainy images of Robert meeting suited men in parking lots, timestamps matching those phantom contracts I'd pored over. Not a criminal mastermind, but a reluctant hero? The air in the room felt charged. Harrison leaning forward with wide eyes, Carol nodding as if she'd suspected layers beneath the surface. Robert had approached the FBI himself, Martinez revealed, after a client entangled him in shady dealings early on. Instead of prosecution, they'd flipped him, offered protection for cooperation. He'd fed them details on money flows, key players, even helped orchestrate stings disguised as business deals. He died before the full takedown, she said. But his work led to 47 arrests and over $200 million in seized assets. And the money? He kept a percentage as compensation to maintain cover and reward his risks. Everything he left you is legitimate, earned through federal channels. Relief washed over me, mingled with a fresh wave of grief. Robert, the meticulous man who'd surprised me with anniversary flowers, had carried this burden alone. No wonder the late nights, the vague stresses I'd attributed to normal business woes. He'd protected me by keeping me in the dark, sacrificing his peace for our safety, and now for my inheritance. But Victoria and Kevin? They hadn't known the full truth. They suspected criminal activity from the records, Martinez confirmed, but no idea about the informant angle. They planned to blackmail you with half the story, trading it for immunity. The irony twisted like a knife. Their scheme to expose Robert would have exonerated him, backfiring spectacularly. Martinez's smile was faint but approving as I processed it all. "Are you afraid, Mrs. Sullivan?" she asked. 2 weeks ago, I'd been terrified, huddled in that motel with peeling walls and a future as thin as the towels. Now, fear isn't my primary emotion anymore, I replied. It's anger, at being underestimated for decades. She nodded, her pen pausing. "Would you be willing to wear a wire?" The question thrilled and terrified me in equal measure. Cooperate in a sting? Me, the homemaker who'd deferred to Robert on everything? But the thought of turning their blackmail against them ignited something fierce. "Yes," I said without hesitation. Harrison beamed. Carol outlined logistics. We'd set up a meeting where Victoria and Kevin would lay out their deal, capturing every incriminating word. 3 hours later, I was back in my living room, a small recording device taped discreetly to my chest under my blouse. Its slight weight a reminder of the power shift. The FBI had wired the house subtly, hidden mics in lamps, agents stationed nearby in a nondescript van. I paced the familiar rugs, sunlight filtering through windows I'd cleaned 1,000 times, rehearsing responses in my head. Victoria's call had confirmed the meeting, 8 p.m., them arriving like it was a casual family visit. My hands trembled slightly as I set out coffee cups, but it wasn't fear, it was anticipation. Robert's secret life had given me this chance to reclaim mine, to prove I wasn't the fragile widow they assumed. They knocked precisely on time, Victoria's face a mask of forced warmth, Kevin clutching a briefcase that screamed business. "Mom, you look better than you have in weeks," Victoria said, air kissing my cheek as if she hadn't evicted me days ago. Kevin nodded, setting the case on the coffee table with practiced ease. "Margaret, our lawyers structured this favorably," he began, pulling out papers, immunity agreements, settlement docs. "You retain the house, $5 million in clean assets, full immunity from Robert's activities." Clean assets, the phrase dripped irony given what I now knew. "The important thing," Victoria chimed in, her eyes pleading, "is we're all protected. The past buried, we move forward." I let them talk, the wire capturing every word. "What about my full $33 million? I asked innocently. Victoria faltered. "Mom, that money's tainted, can't separate it from Daddy's crimes." Kevin leaned in. "We put this misunderstanding behind us. Victoria's charge is gone, my reputation intact, family heals. Misunderstanding, still minimizing felonies." I pressed. "When did you discover Robert's activities, before or during your fraud?" They exchanged glances, Kevin deflecting. "Not relevant." But I pushed. "If you knew and stayed silent, that's accessory. If during your crimes, unlucky." Victoria cracked. "Mom, what are you getting at? That you've planned this for months, the forgeries, the blackmail. Agent Martinez finds it plausible." Their faces drained of color. "Agent Martinez?" Kevin whispered. "FBI, interested in elder abuse, fraud, extortion, especially blackmailing with a dead man's crimes." Kevin lunged for his briefcase, but it was too late. Martinez and 2 agents burst in, badges flashing. "Victoria Sullivan Hayes, Kevin Hayes, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, elder abuse, attempted extortion of a federal witness." The briefcase yielded more evidence, phones seized, papers confiscated. Victoria's betrayal stare pierced me. "Mom, how could you? The same way you forged my inheritance away, except mine's legal." Kevin's desperate warning. "You've put yourself in danger. People connected to Robert won't like this." Martinez added charges. Witness intimidation. As they were cuffed and let out, the house fell silent, the weight of the wire lifting as an agent removed it. Martinez sat with me afterward. "Kevin's warning isn't empty. The Torino family is dangerous. But with Robert's informant status, the feds were executing warrants across states tomorrow." "You're safe," she assured. The full twist settled. Victoria's schemes had confirmed my innocence, exposing their plot while validating Robert's legacy. Not a criminal, but a partner in justice. For the first time, I saw our marriage anew. Not perfect, but purposeful. As night fell, I sat in the quiet, the living room's familiar shadows now allies, whispering of the strength I'd found. As the agents led Victoria and Kevin out in handcuffs, their protests fading into the night, the living room seemed to expand around me, the silence profound after the chaos. I stood there, the adhesive from the wire leaving a faint itch on my skin, watching through the window as they were bundled into unmarked cars. Victoria's last look, pure betrayal, as if I'd been the one scheming, lingered like a ghost. Agent Martinez motioned for me to sit, her expression a mix of professional satisfaction and concern. "Mrs. Sullivan, that went better than expected," she said, holstering her recorder. "We have them on tape admitting to the blackmail, the fraud details, even the timeline of their planning. Add extortion and intimidation. Those charges will stick." Harrison, who'd observed from a side room, joined us, his face flushed with victory. Carol packed her notes, nodding approval. But Kevin's parting shot echoed. Danger from Robert's connections. His warning about people not appreciating federal attention, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Is that real?" Martinez pulled out that thick file again, spreading documents across the coffee table where Kevin's briefcase had sat moments ago. "Not empty, no. Your husband was tied to the Torino crime family, decades of using businesses like his for laundering." She flipped to a page with organizational charts, names redacted, but arrows pointing to Robert's firm at the hub of several operations. The air grew heavy with the scent of fresh coffee I'd brewed earlier, now cold and forgotten. I'd known fragments from Carol's investigation, but this was federal-level detail. The Torinos controlled construction rackets, loan sharking, even political influence in 3 states. Robert's consulting had washed millions through fake projects, emerging as clean investments. Dangerous people. Martinez confirmed, but there's more to his role that changes the picture. I braced, the room's lamplight casting shadows that danced like secrets uncovered. Your husband wasn't just a participant, she continued, her tone softening slightly. He was an FBI informant. The words hit like a fresh twist in this endless pretzel of revelations. For 12 years, deep cover, feeding us intel while playing the loyal facilitator. He'd approached the Bureau after an early entanglement, choosing cooperation over charges. Allowed to keep a cut of the funds to maintain cover, she explained, showing memos authorizing it. Legitimate compensation for risks taken. My mind flashed to those late nights I'd worried over. Robert at his desk with a furrowed brow, claiming client deadlines. He'd been building cases, leading to 47 arrests, $200 million seized. Died before the final blow, but his legacy endured. The estate, my $33 million, was clean, earned through federal partnership. Relief mingled with ache. Robert, the traditional man who'd sometimes patronized me about money, had been a hero in hiding. Why the secrecy? Ongoing investigation, Martinez said, and we had to verify your knowledge, or lack thereof. Your daughter and son-in-law's fraud actually helped. Their blackmail attempt confirmed you were in the dark. The irony was exquisite. Victoria digging for dirt on Robert, planning to trade half-truths for freedom, unaware it would vindicate him. Their partial knowledge, spotting laundering patterns via Kevin's banker eye, had been their weapon, but incomplete. They thought they held the nuclear option, I murmured. Martinez smiled grimly. Instead, they handed us more charges. We discussed next steps as the house settled into quiet. Warrants executing tomorrow, raids on Torino assets, based partly on Robert's old tips. You're safe, she assured, detailing protection if needed. Patrols, a safe house option. But with the family crumbling under arrests, threats seemed distant. Kevin's intimidation attempt, tacked on as a federal offense. Victoria's emotional pleas on tape, evidence of manipulation. Harrison outlined the legal cascade, preliminary hearings, asset reviews. My testimony sealed for now. Carol added forensic angles, traces from Kevin's printer, digital trails in Victoria's emails planning the forgery months back. New details emerged. Kevin's prior securities probes, Victoria's secret meetings with a document expert tied to his firm. They'd plotted during family dinners I'd hosted, smiling over my casseroles while scheming my downfall. As the team packed up, leaving me alone in the reclaimed space, I wandered the rooms, touching surfaces that now felt truly mine. The master bedroom, cleared of Victoria's clutter, invited rest, but sleep evaded. Instead, I sat in Robert's study, files still scattered from Carol's work. His voice from that recording echoed in memory, hopes for Victoria dashed, praises for my sacrifices. 43 years, I'd given up art school dreams, part-time jobs funding her college while Robert built this empire, now revealed as a facade for justice. Anger at his secrecy faded. He'd protected me, just as he'd tried with the Will's clause. But Victoria? Her betrayal stung fresh. In prison letters later, she'd claim remorse, but tonight, with arrests raw, satisfaction bloomed. Not vengeance, but balance. Morning brought updates via phone. Victoria and Kevin processed, bail denied due to flight risk, Kevin's family connections abroad. Eleanor called, her polish cracked, begging reconsideration. Margaret, this destroys us all. I hung up, no words needed. Channel 7 followed up, I agreed to an interview, my story a beacon for others facing family greed. As days blurred into legal prep, the Sting's success solidified my shift, from victim to architect of justice. Robert's twist had armed me, their incriminations sealed their fate. Danger loomed vaguely, but strength surged. The house, once a cage of memories, now a fortress of my making. 6 months had passed since the sting operation that sealed Victoria and Kevin's fates, and the world outside my windows had shifted from the crisp bite of autumn to the gentle thaw of spring. The house, once a monument to Robert's preferences and Victoria's fleeting chaos, now bore my imprint in every corner. I'd hired contractors. Not the ones Victoria had lined up for her ostentatious overhauls, but a local team who listened to my vision. The kitchen, which she'd planned to gut into something sleek and impersonal, became a warm haven with granite counters I'd chosen for their subtle veining, like rivers of memory flowing through stone. New windows let in floods of light, banishing the shadows where secrets had hidden. Robert's study transformed into my art studio, walls painted a soft eggshell white, shelves lined with paints and brushes I'd ordered online, rediscovering a passion buried under decades of domestic duty. The scent of fresh varnish mingled with the earthy aroma of oil paints, a daily reminder that this space was mine to create in. Harrison had been my steadfast guide through the legal maze, ensuring the $33 million flowed cleanly into accounts under my name. Victoria and Kevin each received 18-month federal sentences, time in minimum security facilities that felt like a mild rebuke compared to the homelessness they'd inflicted on me. Their appeals fizzled under the weight of the taped confessions, the forensic trails, and Robert's exonerating informant files. Eleanor Hayes tried one last desperate outreach, a letter dripping with faux remorse, offering to facilitate reconciliation for the grandchildren's sake. I burned it in the fireplace, watching the flames curl the edges, feeling no guilt. The media frenzy had crested and ebbed. My Channel 7 interview sparked a wave of stories, positioning me as an unlikely advocate against elder financial abuse. Calls poured in from seniors sharing similar tales: manipulative children, forged documents, stolen legacies. It ignited something purposeful in me. With Sarah Chen, Carol's sister, and my new financial advisor, I established the Margaret Sullivan Foundation for Elder Protection. We funneled $15 million into it, funding legal aid for victims, lobbying for stronger laws, and awareness campaigns that hit airwaves and billboards. Sarah arrived one morning for our quarterly review, her leather portfolio brimming with reports. "Your investments are thriving," she said, settling at the breakfast nook with its view of the garden I'd replanted myself. Tulips and roses pushing through soil I'd turned with my own hands. The foundation was operational, scholarships awarded to law students specializing in elder rights, our first gala planned for fall. "And the documentary?" I asked, pouring coffee that steamed with promise. "Netflix greenlit it. The Mother's Revenge starts filming next month." Proceeds would bolster advocacy groups, turning my nightmare into a force for change. Victoria's letters from prison numbered 17 now, stacked unopened in a drawer after I'd skimmed the early ones, self-justifications morphing into pleas for forgiveness. Sarah broached it carefully. "She's requesting a meeting through her lawyer to apologize." I stirred my coffee, the spoon clinking like closing doors. "Schedule it, not for reconciliation, but clarity." "What kind?" "To make her understand the permanence. She destroyed our bond, and her children will know the truth when they're old enough." "Harsh," Sarah noted. "It should be, she chose felony over family." "The grandchildren's supervised visits?" "Based on their adult choices, not her redemption." The doorbell interrupted, a delivery truck with furniture for the studio, easels and stools in warm oak, perfect for long afternoons lost in color and form. After Sarah left, I wandered to the studio, uncovering my latest self-portrait, a woman in sunlight, face forward, eyes alive with defiance. Painting had become therapy, each stroke unraveling the submissive wife I'd been. Do I regret the outcomes, the sentences, estrangement, publicity? Sarah had asked earlier. Considering it while unpacking the new pieces, I felt no remorse. 6 months ago, invisible and broken, packing life into suitcases. Today, philanthropist with purpose, foundation thriving, documentary deal secured. Victoria and Kevin revealed themselves when they thought me powerless. They weren't family, just shared DNA. Family protects vulnerability, doesn't exploit it. Afternoons brought calls from advocates, sharing victories inspired by my story. A widow reclaiming her home, a son prosecuted for similar fraud. It softened the isolation of estrangement. Evenings I cooked for one, experimenting with recipes Robert never liked, the kitchen echoing with podcasts on art history. The Foundation's board meetings via video linked me to experts, our mission expanding to workshops for seniors on spotting abuse. One evening, a letter from Victoria's lawyer arrived, formal and pleading. I responded via Harrison, no forgiveness without transformation matching mine, no contact until she faced her greed's full cost. Spring rain pattered as I sat on the porch watching blossoms unfurl. The house felt alive, not haunted. Renovations complete, garden blooming, studio humming with creativity. Personal rebirth wasn't just survival, it was thriving beyond their imaginations. Victoria's release loomed in a year, but I'd built walls of independence. If she sought rebuilding, it'd require more than words, actions proving change. Until then, I painted, advocated, lived on my terms. As the seasons turned fully into summer with sunlight lingering longer each evening, I found myself reflecting on the profound shifts that had redefined my existence. The foundation's work consumed my days now, a whirlwind of board meetings, grant approvals, and speaking engagements where I shared my story not as a victim, but as a survivor who'd turned betrayal into a blueprint for protection. The Netflix documentary crew arrived one humid morning, their cameras capturing the renovated house, the art studio with its half-finished canvases, the library where Robert's wine cellar plans had given way to shelves of books on law and resilience. "Tell us about the moment you decided to fight back," the director prompted, and I recounted the motel room despair, the lawyer's revelation, the sting's adrenaline, weaving in Robert's unexpected legacy as an informant. Proceeds from the series would fund more scholarships, extending my reach to help women like me reclaim their power. Victoria's release date approached, but her letters had ceased after my lawyer's firm response. No reconciliation without genuine atonement, no access to the grandchildren until they could choose for themselves. I'd met with her attorney in Harrison's office, a sterile space that mirrored the finality of my words. "She needs to understand the irreparable damage," I'd said, outlining how her greed had cost not just money, but trust. The grandchildren, innocent in this mess, received cards and gifts from me, their photos on my fridge, a bittersweet reminder. Kevin's family had distanced themselves. Eleanor's threats dissolving into silence after the Torino raids dismantled their leverage. Federal updates from Agent Martinez confirmed the crime family's collapse. Dozens indicted, assets frozen, Robert's contributions lauded in sealed reports. No dangers materialized. My life settled into a secure rhythm. Personal growth bloomed alongside professional purpose. Painting classes at the local community center introduced me to a circle of women my age, sharing laughs over palettes and wine. Real connections, not the superficial ones Victoria had paraded. One evening, as I blended colors for a landscape inspired by our old garden, I pondered Robert's recording again. His praise for my sacrifices, his fears for Victoria's character. He'd seen her entitlement mirroring his sister's, yet hoped for better. I didn't hate him for the secrets. Understanding his informant role brought closure, a sense that our marriage, flawed as it was, had served a greater good. The money, legitimized through his risks, funded my independence, no more deferring to others' visions. Doorbell rings brought surprises now, like packages of art supplies or foundation donors dropping by. Sarah's visits evolved into friendships, her advice extending beyond finances to life choices. "You've become everything they never expected," she said during one review, charts showing the portfolio's growth mirroring my own. Regrets? None. The estrangement, while painful, was necessary. Some breaks can't be mended with apologies alone. Victoria had proven Robert right in the worst way. Her actions a catalyst for my awakening. The self-portrait in the studio captured it. A woman in bright light, unbound by past roles. Thanks for listening to my journey, from discarded widow to empowered advocate. Don't forget to subscribe and share your stories in the comments. Your voice matters. As I look ahead, the future unfolds like a blank canvas, ready for my strokes. In the quiet evenings that followed, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in soft hues of pink and gold, I often sat on the porch with a cup of herbal tea, letting the warmth seep into my bones. The garden whispered gently with the rustle of leaves, each bloom a testament to patience and renewal. Life had woven its threads into a tapestry far richer than I could have imagined, threads of loss entwined with unexpected strength, betrayal giving way to profound self-discovery. Robert's memory lingered not as a shadow, but as a quiet companion, his hidden courage inspiring my own steps forward. Victoria's absence ached at times, a faint echo of what might have been, yet I held space for healing on my terms, knowing forgiveness blooms only when roots run deep and true. The Foundation's work brought letters from strangers turned allies, stories of resilience that mirrored mine, reminding me that one voice can spark a chorus. The documentary wrapped filming, its narrative softening the edges of my tale, focusing on hope amid hardship. As nights grew cooler, I turned inward, sketching dreams in my journal, travels to places Robert and I had only talked about, classes to nurture talents long set aside. The house, once a vessel for others' lives, now cradled my solitude like a gentle embrace, its rooms filled with light and possibility. And in those still moments, as stars emerged overhead, I whispered to myself a simple truth: we are all capable of rising, of reshaping our stories from the ashes of what was. May you find your own light, dear listener, soft and enduring as the dawn.